As a small boy, whenever I saw myself reflected in a large mirror, I felt all the horror of the wraith-like doubling or multiplication of reality. Mirrors, with their never-failing mimicry, their pursuit of each of my movements, their pantomime of the world, seemed eerie to me. If a mirror hangs in a room, I can no longer be alone there. Someone else is present. God created the forms of the mirror to show man that he is but a reflection, that all is vanity. This is why mirrors frighten us. The great Argentine poet and storyteller Jorge Luis Borges is a magician with words, a master of unique metaphysical fables. Often, at the center of his strange labyrinths, he comes face to face with himself. I realized then that for all his prodigious memory, Funes was incapable of generalizing, of abstracting, that he was, in short, incapable of thought. In his teeming world there was nothing but detail after detail. It must have been difficult for him to sleep, to turn his mind from the world. Almost in fear, it occurred to me that each of my words, each of my movements, would live on forever in the stammering grandeur of Funes's memory. I hardly dared move, not wishing to add to his awful burden. Toward dawn, almost as if for the first time, I saw the face of the voice that had spoken to me all night. It seemed as monumental as bronze, more ancient than Egypt, older than the prophets and the pyramids. He made his way, faint and bleeding, to the circular ruin which was once the color of fire and is now the color of ash. This ruin was a temple which was destroyed ages ago by flames. The stranger knew it was the place he needed for his unswerving purpose, which, though it was supernatural, was not impossible. He wanted to dream a man. He wanted to dream him down to the last detail and project him into the world of reality. The stranger dreamed himself at the center of a circular amphitheater, which in some way was also the burnt-out temple. Crowds of disciples exhausted the tiers of seats. The faces of the farthest of them hung centuries away from him and at a height of the stars. The man lectured on anatomy, cosmography, and witchcraft. He was in search of a soul worthy of taking a place in the world. After 9 or 10 days, he realized that nothing could be expected from those pupils who passively accepted his teaching. He dismissed his vast dream school forever. Borges, you speak of H.G. Wells. In what way did he influence you?
I think he taught me that a fantastic story should be accepted of imagination. So he said that in his stories he only used one fantastic element. For example, he wrote Invisible Man. of a lonely, invisible man in London. Then another, The World of the Worlds. Well, the world was invaded by people from Mars, but he didn't write a story about invisible inhabitants of Mars invading the Earth, because that would staggered belief. So in his stories, he only had one fantastic thing, and all the rest was commonplace and unbelievable. And I have done the same thing.
He realized that the task of shaping the senseless and dizzying stuff of dreams is the hardest that a man can attempt. He realized that an initial failure was to be expected, and now he sought another method. He waited until the moon was a perfect circle. He worshipped the gods of the planets, uttered the prescribed syllables of an all-powerful name, and slept. Almost at once, he dreamed a beating heart. He dreamed it throbbing, warm, secret. With anxious love, he dreamed it for 14 lucid nights. Each night he perceived it more clearly. Before a year was over, he came to the skeleton, the eyelids. The countless strands of hair were perhaps the hardest task of all. He dreamed the whole man, a young man, but the young man could not stand up or speak, nor could he open his eyes. Night after night, the man dreamed him asleep. At last, in the dreamer's dream, the dreamed one awoke.
I was enjoying that kind of writing, that kind of pompous writing, I was enjoying it as a game. After all, literature is a game. But Stevenson said you should play at it seriously, even as a boy does. A boy plays seriously. I suppose a literary man plays seriously, but he knows that the whole thing is a play or a game.
The magician devoted 2 years to initiating his disciple into the riddles of the universe and the worship of fire. The exercises over, he sent his son down the river to another temple. The magician knew that of all the creatures in the world, fire was the only one who would recognize his son as a phantom. The recollection tormented him. The end of these anxieties came suddenly, but certain signs foretold it. The sky took on the rosy hue of a leopard's gums. Pillars of smoke turned the metal of the nights to rust. What had happened many centuries ago was happening again. The ruins of the fire god's shrine were being destroyed by fire. Death was coming to crown the magician's years and to release him from his labors. He walked into the leaping pennants of flame. They did not bite into his flesh, but caressed him and flooded him without heat or burning. In relief, in humiliation, in terror, he understood that he too was an appearance, that someone else was dreaming him. Borges and myself. It's to the other man, to Borges, that things happen. I walk along the streets of Buenos Aires. Of Borges I get news through the mail and glimpse his name in a dictionary of biography. I have a taste for hourglasses, maps, 18th century topography, the roots of words, the smell of coffee, and Stevenson's prose. The other man shares these likes, but in a showy way that turns them into stagey mannerisms. It would be an exaggeration to say that we're on bad terms. I let myself live, so that Borges can weave his tales and poems, and those tales and poems are my justification. And so my life is a running away, and I lose everything, and everything is left to oblivion or to the other man. Which of us is writing this page, I don't know.
Cuando Ralston volvió a sus sentidos.
Mírenlo al pavo de mierda. Parece un pavote.
Borges, ¿cómo era?
Ik ben maar schuldig.
Usted ha dado vuelta a las cosas, ¿sabe?
No, tranquilo, nada. Usted me está haciendo trampas.
Mi memoria, señor, es como vaciadero de basuras.
A man sets himself the task of depicting the world. Year after year, he fills a long white wall with images of provinces, kingdoms, mountains, bays, ships, islands, fishes, anchors, rooms, tools, stars, horses, and people. Just before he dies, he discovers that out of this patient labyrinth of lines emerge the features of his own face.